Welcome to Turning the Tables Healthy Cooking class. This is a project of Cornell Cooperative Extension, Ulster County, the Ellenville Regional Rural Health Network, and Stick to Local Studio. I'm Maria Reidelbach. This class is about how to make fruit crisp from whatever fruit you've got on hand, whatever nuts you've got on hand, and whatever grains you've got on hand. But first, let's talk about what fruit crisp really is. Fruit crisp has several layers. It's got at the bottom a fragrant, tart, juicy fruit layer, and on top a crispy caramelized grain and nut layer. In between, it's got a sweet pudding-like transition layer that might be one of my favorite layers. And then you can add on top a dollop of something creamy. Could be ice cream, could be a little poured cream, some whipped cream, or some kind of dairy substitute cream. What ingredients can you use? You can use just about any kind of fruit, except for maybe melon. You can use apples, berries, pears, currants, rhubarb, really just about anything that you would find baked into a pie. Whole grains, you can use oatmeal and whole wheat flour, which are traditional. You can also use cornmeal. You can use any kind of rolled grain or meal, like rolled barley or rolled wheat. You can use things like chickpea flour, almond flour. Really, you can vary things quite wildly and it'll still taste good. Sweetening, you can use honey, you can use maple syrup, you can use sugar, you can use sucanat, any of a variety of sweeteners. And you'll want to have a little bit of butter or other fat. That means that you can use butter, which is traditional. You could use margarine, you could use coconut oil, but you do want to use something that is solid at room temperature because that will help your crisp be crispy. And then as a tasty addition, you'll want to add your choice of spice. Cinnamon is traditional, but nutmeg's good, ginger's good, coriander's nice. Again, any of the sweet spices that you're used to getting in other desserts can work in a fruit crisp. The equipment that you'll need is very simple. You'll need a bowl, a spoon, a baking dish, a knife, and some kind of oven, toaster oven or regular oven, either one. What are the steps? The steps are, first, prep the fruit. This means taking out any seeds and cutting it into bite-sized pieces. Second step, in your bowl, mix your dry ingredients. Third step, add the wet ingredients to the bowl. This would be your butter or other fat and any kind of liquid sweetener that you're going to want to use. Fourth step, sprinkle your topping onto your fruit. And the fifth step is to bake your creation in your oven until it's bubbly in the middle. Now we'll be reviewing all these as we go. And here's what your finished crisp might look like. Again, crispy on the top, juicy on the bottom, and that creamy pudding-like layer in between. So here we are in the kitchen, and these are the apples that I got from John Whiteman's fruit farm in Cherrytown Road in Kerhonkson. They had so many different kinds of apples, and I just kind of wanted to show the varieties, the different colors, the sizes. We've got little teeny apples. There's like an oval apple that is called a Turkish apple, nice big giant yellow delicious apple, alongside the tiny number 88 apple that John developed himself. And there's Cavallon Blanc de Heuve, which is a 500-year-old apple. Pretty amazing. So I like to use a variety of apples when I'm making fruit crisp or fruit pie, because it's just fun to get those different flavors and textures in there, because apples do have very different flavors and they do have very different textures. Some turn to mush when they're cooked and some stay firm. Some are very juicy, some are a little dry. And so it's nice to kind of mix them up and see what you get. So I've got my apples here and I'm going to wash them off. Got to wash your produce before you eat it. Give them a rinse. You don't need to use any of that special produce washing solution I've seen for sale. That just isn't necessary. And then you will want to prepare your fruit. So in the case of apples, I prefer to not peel fruit if I don't have to. There are a couple reasons for that. One of the reasons is that the peel often has lots of flavor. And another reason is that the peel often has more nutrition. And the third reason is that it's so much quicker if you don't have to peel. So I am just going to slice these apples thinly. Since they do have the peel, I want to cut them nice and small to have a nice texture. And I am just putting them right into the baking dish. Now, lots of recipes for fruit crisp call for buttering the baking dish, but I have found that that is not necessary. It really doesn't do anything at all. So don't bother with that. What I'm doing is I'm cutting each apple into quarters and then cutting the core out with a paring knife. And that is a nice, quick way to do it. So just kind of cutting it into what we called apple snits when I was growing up. I think that might be a Pennsylvania Dutch term, but I don't know. So here is another apple. And one thing that's really fun about using different kinds of apples is also tasting them as you go, because it's just a way to learn more about apples and also a way to kind of have a little more fun while you're cooking. So this is all going pretty quickly, just cutting these all up. And taking a taste. One of the things that you'll find is that after you cut apples up, most of them will start to turn brown. This doesn't affect the flavor, but it does affect the appearance. So, you'll either want to just keep moving along and not let them sit around for too long, or if that's an issue and you do need to let them sit around, you might want to give them a squeeze of lemon juice, which will inhibit that browning reaction. So here is a fruit corer. I thought I'd just kind of demo. It's not a tool that's needed, but if you want to make baked apples, it's very handy. You just kind of shove it through and aim it at the other end. And you can see that it leaves a couple of seeds always, which don't seem to matter if you're baking them. I've never noticed them being a problem. So taking another taste, because apples are yummy, and that's the cook's prerogative. And you can see there's even different colors of the insides of apples. If you start using different kinds of apples, you're going to really have fun checking out the differences in the flavor, in the look, in the texture of the skin, the texture and juiciness of the flesh. There's just so much variety. So here we go. And I'm just putting these into a Pyrex leftover container that I'm going to use as a baking dish. This way it fits in my toaster oven. And also, if we don't eat all of the fruit crisp in one go, if there's a lid that fits, and I can just put the lid on to store it. I've got a little bowl there for my compost. All these apple cores and things are going to go into the compost pile. And now I'm just kind of leveling them out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my toaster oven here for 400 degrees, and I'm going to pop that baking dish in there and give those apples a little bit of a head start warming up while I make the topping for the fruit crisp. So what I had on hand was peanuts, and peanuts and apples are this amazing taste combination. I only found out relatively recently that it's one of those magic combos that, an apple snit with a little bit of peanut butter on it is just an amazingly awesome, delicious flavor. So I thought I would try using peanuts in the apple crisp. And peanuts have a lot of protein, and they're a nice economical alternative to tree nuts like walnuts or pecans or hazelnuts or almonds, which are also really good. So we only need 1/4 cup of nuts. So I am going to just chop these up, and they're looking pretty good. Okay, so now I am got my bowl, and I'm going to mix together my dry ingredients. So this is going to be 1/2 cup of oatmeal, one of my favorite whole grains. There it goes. And 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour. King Arthur's a nice company, and it's employee owned, so think about that when you're buying flour next time. And here we go, just measuring that into a cup. It's my measuring cup. Now, these amounts are not very strict, so you can have a little bit more or less, and it's not going to make a huge difference. It's the wonderful thing about fruit crisp. So I've got my oats and my flour in there. Now I'm putting in a dash of salt. Even sweet things need a little dash of salt to bring the flavor out. And I'm adding 1/4 cup of sugar and 1/4 cup of honey. So I'm mixing my sweeteners. So there's my 1/4 cup of sugar going in with the dry ingredients. Giving that a stir. Stirring that up with my wooden spoon. Making sure those grains are all mixed up. I'm adding my chopped nuts. Turned out to be a little more than 1/4 cup, but I don't think anybody ever complained about too many nuts. I certainly don't. And again, it shows how flexible this recipe is. Now I'm going to add the wet ingredients. It's going to be 1/4 cup of honey. If your honey has gotten solid, it doesn't mean that it's gone bad. You just need to take the jar and warm it up, either by putting it in a pot of warm water or putting it in the microwave for just maybe 5 seconds. And that will liquefy it again. Now you can see I'm using a rubber spatula here. Rubber spatulas are really great for avoiding food waste because you can get every single drop out of jars, out of bowls. They're so helpful. I even use them in my workshop for paint and things. So here we go with the softened butter. You're going to find that if you have softened fat, it's going to be a lot easier to mix. So I highly recommend that. Now we're just giving it a stir. Doesn't take much. Just kind of mix it all up. It becomes this kind of dough, kind of a lumpy dough. Just stir a bit. And this is really a fun dish that you can make with kids as well because it's just so easy. You don't have to worry about overbeating it, and pretty simple to measure. 1/2 cup of oats, 1/2 cup of flour, 1/2 cup of sugar. and then a few extra ingredients. 5 tablespoons of fat. There's my shake of spice, which could have gone in with the dry ingredients, but I forgot. No biggie. Putting it in now. Making sure it's well blended, though, so that it doesn't end up all in one bite. And that is really about it. Now our crisp mixture is all done. I am going to retrieve the fruit from the toaster oven. Here it comes. And I'm just going to take this topping, and so I'm kind of evening these out a little bit, trying to mix those apples up a little more so that the varieties are mixed up. And they've just barely started to cook. And the easiest way to put this topping on evenly is to just do it with your clean hands. I think that hands are a really overlooked cooking tool. Your hands are so much more agile than a spoon or sometimes a fork. I really recommend getting up close and personal with your food there. So spread it evenly on top of your fruit, and it'll be lumpy. There'll be, some little bare spots, but just make sure it's like all the way out to the edge there. And there you go. It's looking really good. Now, one of the things that I really like to do is double the recipe of topping, and then take the extra and put it loosely into a freezer bag and put it in the freezer. And then that way, the next time I want to make fruit crisp, all I have to do is pull the bag out of the freezer and sprinkle that on top of my fruit. There it is, all beautiful, going into the toaster oven. It's going to be cooking at about 400 degrees for about 35 minutes, or until it's bubbling inside. Now, the temperature could be higher or lower. If you've got something else in the oven that's more temperature sensitive, when you've gone about 30 minutes, pull it out and take a look and see if it's bubbling in the middle. It should be browned on top and bubbling in the middle. What I like to do is I like to take a spoon and just move aside the topping so I can see, and then push it gently back, and it's looking pretty good. So I am going to sneak a little bite from the corner and see how it tastes. And it's pretty good. Now, if you can let your fruit crisp cool a bit, the topping's going to get crispier as it cools. But don't put a lid on until it's totally cool, because if you do, you will get some soggy topping. So enjoy. You can use any fruit you like. Have fun with the topping too.